Hello everyone. What is a source? A source is the power supply component. It's the component that would supply power to the entire circuit. Now it's two types. The first type it's called independent, and the second one is a dependent source. Now obviously from the name of it, we can say that independent, it only depends on itself. It does not depend on another element in the circuit. And the shape of it, it's always circular, and it either has a polarity, which is a voltage source, or it has an arrow, which is a current source. Now, the most common property about it, that it's always a numerical value. It might be a fixed number, such as 10 ampere if it's a current source, or maybe 9 volts, or here I said 10 volts if it's a voltage source, or 9 ampere if it's a current source. Or it might be a variable number, such as AC sources, because we mentioned before a DC and an AC. A DC is a fixed value, while AC is a sinusoidal or exponential function, 10 sine t, or 4e to the negative 4t, which might be voltage or a current. Okay, now the second type, it's a dependent source. A dependent source always takes this shape. It either would be a voltage dependent source or a current dependent source, but there is something really tricky about the dependent sources. Even if it depends on a voltage, let's say here the value of this dependent source, it's a 3Vx, or the value it's 2Ix. In both cases, since the drawing has a polarity, that means doesn't matter. This dependent source might depend on a voltage, and it is the unit of it, it's volt. And it can depend on a current, but still the unit is volt. So what determine what type of source is this one? It's the polarity. If you have a polarity here, that means it's always volt in voltage. Doesn't matter if it depends on Vx or Ix. So Vx and Ix are any voltage or current on another element in the circuit. So let's say I can give you an example. If we have a dependent source here, which is positive negative, that means it's a voltage, right? But it depends on a current. This current is located, let's say this is a circuit, and we have another circuit here with another source, and there is a current here called Ix. So this dependent source, it depends on a resistor in another loop, right? It depends on the current in that resistor. So this resistor has a current of Ix. That means this voltage source has a voltage which is equal to 2 times the current in this resistor. So if this resistor holds, let's say 10 ampere, then this one would be 10 times 10, 2 times 10, which is 20 volts. So pay attention to this. That's why I said here, doesn't matter if this voltage dependent source depend on a voltage or a current. In both cases, the unit would be volts. Why? Because of the polarity here. While this shape, it has an arrow inside. That means it's a current dependent source. It might depend on a voltage or it might depend on a current. Doesn't matter. And we said Vx and Ix is any voltage and current on another element in the circuit, just like we've seen here. This dependent source depend on a current in another resistor. Maybe it's in another loop or in the same loop. Doesn't matter. And for here, what's the unit? It will be ampere. This is it for today. In next class, we will define the loop and the nodes. So stay with us.